Hi, I'm Nan Simonson. I'm a nationally board certified health and wellness coach, the author of Aging Powerfully, the book I wrote just before turning 70. I'm now almost 74. And I was celebrating in that book the fact that we can age decades longer than what we look around us and see in our general population, and that is with vibrant health, balance, and joy by living under the precepts of lifestyle medicine. And that's something that I write about in the book after a memoir, and I define what those the pillars of health and lifestyle are based on the experience I've had for 6 years in a lifestyle medical practice. Well, I recently decided to take on a challenge because although I feel fantastic and I'm healthy and I have no symptoms, I got some lab work recently that is consistent with lab work I've had for 6 years, and that is all kinds of general health numbers looking fantastic, except for three. One is something called a SED rate, and I think it's ESR. Um, and that has to do with inflammation, but not specific. There's something else called a C-reactive protein that most doctors test for. This just happened to be an additional test that I had way back then, 6 years ago, that showed the high SED rate. Well, it has been high for these 6 years, inexplicably, still no symptoms. And then a high thyroglobulin, which ties in with the fact that I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, but I take Synthroid, and that's what everyone with thyroid disease takes, and it takes care of any symptoms, but it's there. And then I have something called RA antibodies, rheumatoid arthritis antibodies. Well, when I began, just before beginning my journey into lifestyle as medicine, I was so stiff and so sore and everything hurt. In other words, by now, I would barely be able to walk, possibly. But that the lifestyle changes, as well as adopting a whole food plant-based diet, was so nourishing that it's taken care of even those symptoms. I feel terrific, but those antibiotics were there. And then I heard a conversation between Chef AJ and Dr. Brook Goldner. She is the author of Goodbye Lupus, and she's a physician. She's also board certified in psychiatry as well as neurology. And she has a protocol that is based on her own recovery from lupus that almost killed her, lupus that made her say when she met the man of her dreams, I may not live beyond 3 years, and if I do, I'll for sure be on dialysis. I can't have children. They say it will kill me. And romantically, he said, well, I'd rather live with you for 3 years than anyone else for a lifetime. Isn't that sweet? And what's marvelous about this story is that that man that she met in college, Carnegie Mellon, while she was becoming a physician, she was just about to go in or to graduate, was there to study physiology. I believe it was sports physiology at the time, but he also did a really deep dive into cellular metabolism. And he wrote this book, Miracle Metabolism. He was hired he had a big business. He was recognized even in show business for being someone that could get people really healthy and very ripped. Now, there are a lot of ways to get ripped and thin and muscular doing things that are unhealthy, but he did it using health and everything that he had learned. Well, he was the guy who asked her to marry him. And she said, okay, I'll marry you. And they decided on Hawaii 3 months later. And she wanted to look really nice for her wedding, and she felt that she wasn't where she wanted to be body-wise. And so he put her on a protocol that she asked for, and she went from size 11 to 3. By the time they were married, she was ripped and she was proud, and they were happy, and they came back as a married couple. And then she had to have lab work, and her doctor, a new doctor, said, because the old one, the one was retiring or left to practice or whatever, then the doctor said, you don't have lupus, you don't have any of the antibodies for lupus. And she realized that her symptoms were abating. Well, it turned out to be true. Not only did she no longer have lupus, but she ultimately had children a few years later, and the lupus, which they told her would come back, did not come back. And she remained healthy enough to have another child, and it never came back. She credits Thomas Tadlock's hyper-nourishment protocol for that. She kept that protocol going because as the years went by, she wanted to make sure, because that's what they brought it down to. They did a really deep dive into the mechanics of what she had been doing and why it made a difference. And they even experimented with this protocol on other people with autoimmune diseases, offering to do it with them for free, to walk them through it. And they saw one disease after another, not just autoimmune diseases, reverse, or in some cases, people would call them simply now healed. A lot of people don't like the word healed when it comes to some diseases that they say they cannot heal, but you know what, if you just say reverse and they don't have it anymore, that's good enough. And it's now been 18 years she's lupus free. So their protocol has gotten not only a lot of attention, but in one of her social media podcasts, I've been listening a lot, because when I decided I was going to do the protocol, the Goodbye Lupus protocol, but also using this book, it was the 6-week walkthrough of the fast recovery program. I was doing it on my own, just using her materials and the enormous number of podcasts that she has available on YouTube, she's on Facebook, she's on Instagram. And I decided to begin earlier than her next program. She has a program beginning October 16th. This is September 23rd, or October something, middle of October. And I wanted to start on September 2nd, just days after talking to my doctor, running this by him. He had had another patient that had remarkable recovery on a number of levels doing her program. And he said, do it, do the program. He even looked it up while we were talking to see when the next one was. Again, it was too far in the future. I was going to be going on a holiday in the middle of October. So I'm just doing it on my own. So what is this all about? That's what I'm going to walk you through. She also then has Goodbye Lupus, Hello Delicious, which is a cookbook that helps us understand what we can and how to make things on the protocol. So I just got back last night from a conference, an international plant-based healthcare conference that was under the oversight of the Plantrition Project. The Plantrition Project was begun, I want to say more than a decade ago by a Dr. Stroll. He is a plant-based lifestyle medicine physician who looked around him and said, there is too much evidence that what we're promoting is working to keep people, make people healthy and keep them healthy. We have got to get this out to other physicians. And that's what this was the last 4 days. It was 500 physicians coming in from all over the world, Australia, Japan, all over Europe, to learn how lifestyle as medicine and plant-based nutrition can make people healthy and keep them that way. Unfortunately, our population is going exactly the opposite direction. So there I was as a health coach with doctors and nurses and dietitians and a lot of specialists. And what was super fun is that Dr. Goldner was there. I didn't realize that. I already had been part of I registered for the conference months ago, even before I decided to do this. And then after I decided to do this and shared with Chef AJ that I was doing it, she said, "Oh, well, Dr. Goldner will be there." And then she said to me on the day of the conference, she was rooming with me. She said, "Dr. Goldner is going to be sitting at our table for dinner." Isn't that cool? She had just flown in from Texas, and so I got to have a few words with her. So the title of what I'm sharing with you is Taking Dr. Goldner's Hyper-Nourishment on the Road. It was disconcerting to think that I was going to try to get this protocol that I had to get so carefully balanced and orchestrated at home, to get it to work for me away from home at a conference, but I didn't want to give up on doing it perfectly, because if it didn't work, if I get my next labs at the end of October and it's not what I want or is what I want to know that I had done it exactly the way I was supposed to and didn't have any off days. And so I took this on the road to the conference. So I'm going to walk you through some slides of the things that I saw at the conference. And no, this isn't a beautiful slide presentation because I was taking photos of the screens of the slides, but it's going to give you a little bit of a walkthrough. And then at the end, I'll tell you more specifically what I did and how I made this work. So I'm going to share my screen and let's get this thing going. And hold on just a minute. Oh, there it is. And there. Okay, so this is the Plantrition Project. This is the International Plant-Based Healthcare Conference. And as I said, there were people from all over the world. This was the last presentation. It was 2 dietitians, Dr. Clapper, who is highly respected, not only nationally, but internationally. And he's using his last decades to go from medical school to say to the doctors, please understand that lifestyle as medicine, especially food, plant-based food, will not only save us physically, but also help save our planet and save our environment. That is his mission. And this is right here, Dr. Stoll, who began the Plantrition Project. So we saw luminaries like, Dean Ornish speak, and Dr. Furman speak. And there we are with Dr. Dr. Goldhammer, who is the founder of True North, the, again, internationally known fasting center that has just been acknowledged by the Mayo Clinic as being a very valuable way to reverse diseases. We also have, well, I had friends there I didn't even know were going to be there. This is Karen, who is part of our PowerPoints group and another group that I'm part of. And we even had some interesting attendees. This sweet little thing was with the doctor that brought her and his wife and sat through every one of the presentations. She's actually staring at the screen. She never yipped, she never barked, and she barely moved. That was kind of fun to have her there. And there is Dr. Goldner. I was so thrilled to be present for how she presented, what she presented to the doctors. She told them about her life with lupus. She told them about her history of illness and how it was turned around when she did her hyper-nourishing protocol, and then how she has taken that to the people. And then she showed slide after slide after slide of people and their illnesses that have completely turned around with her protocol. And then she explained what the protocol looked like, and I'll give it to you in very general terms. I would encourage you to go to her channels, and I'll put that up under the description. I also have several other videos on her protocol that are much more specific, including me making one of the smoothies so that you can see that. And she is, again, very active on social media, and her content there is free. That's Dr. Goldner. I saw her that night when she came in for dinner, and I said, well, she wasn't wearing this outfit, but that morning that she smoked the next morning. I said, you look like Celine Dion. And her words were, well, I wish I had that voice. Now, she's just got a mind that is brilliant. This was the title of her talk, How to Reverse Chronic Disease and Optimize Immune Function with Supermarket Food. And that's exactly what we do. The 6 steps to healing with supermarket food is the way she presented it. I'm not going to be going through those steps, but I'm going to explain what it is that the protocol is, the outline of what the protocol requires. First, it's the elimination of inflammatory foods. If you're going to hyper-nourish, you don't bring it down with the things that cause inflammation in our body, and they include animal products, processed foods, and all vegetable oils, even olive oil, for the period that you are hyper-nourishing to reverse your antibodies or to reverse the disease, or until you've accomplished what you want and you go to step down. Now, never reintroducing animal products, being discouraged highly from ever reintroducing processed foods, even though sometimes they will sneak in. And the oils, the problem with the oils is that they are very, very high. Well, you know what? I'm not going to get into it. When I talk to you about one of the other foods, then I'll talk to you about the oils and how the processed foods fit in there, but I'll leave that alone for now. So again, we're letting go of no animal products, but I've done that for 6 years. Processed foods, I've cut way, way down on them. It's hard to cut them completely out, but during this protocol, it is nothing but the foods that are recommended, which I'm about to show you, and no oils. Well, with the exception of one, and I'll tell you what that is too. What is the food we eat? All raw vegetables. She found that, and she's experimented with that, allowing even steamed vegetables on the protocol. And what she has found is she can get consistently good results with nothing but raw vegetables, and doesn't find the same thing even with smaller amounts of steamed or otherwise cooked vegetables. The reason being, you can see her percentages here, that the strength of the hyper-nourishing strength of all of these vegetables go down by approximately 30% when they're cooked, even if they're lightly steamed. So it's completely raw vegetables. She recommends at least 1.5 pounds of raw vegetables a day, at least 1 pound of those from leafy green and cruciferous vegetables. And if you want to hear more about it, again, you can catch her podcasts. She has a weekly 12:30 question and answer session on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram that people can even post questions on. It's every Wednesday, 12:30 Pacific time. And you can catch any of my other videos, and I go into this much more. But so we're looking at raw food. We're looking at least 1.5 pounds a day, at least 1 pound of that, green leafies and cruciferous vegetables. And we'll look a little bit more into how to make that work. And then hydration, hyperhydration. And by hyperhydration, and this on this slide is a list of the things that by hydrating well can be eliminated, things that people wouldn't even realize would make a difference. But by being very well hydrated as opposed to dehydrated, which, as she explains, most people are, we're advised to drink at least 64 ounces, 8 glasses of water a day. You hear that all the time. She is requesting and requiring in her protocol at least 96 ounces of water a day, or 1 ounce per pound of body weight, up to 1 gallon a day. Now there are, and that's where she gets into working with people individual, there are considerations for that. Somebody with renal failure, somebody with cardiovascular or situations where it would throw out their electrolytes if they had too much water. All of that is worked down. But if you're working with her and you have any of those symptoms, so I'm not going to make the blanket statement that everybody must. When she talks to people, she evaluates that. But in general, we're looking at least 96 ounces of water a day. I now am drinking 100 ounces of water a day. At first it was hard. Now, as she said, my body has gotten used to that. And then, so the first was what? Eliminating animal, processed, and oils. The second was raw foods, at least 1.5 pounds a day of green and cruciferous. The other, at least 1 pound of the green and cruciferous, 1.5 pounds of the others, and fruit can be added to that as well. And hydration, 96 ounces or more. And then these omega-3s. Omega-3 fatty acids and omega-6 are essential fatty acids. You'll hear it spoken of as you need to have your essential fatty acids. The thing is, an excess of omega-6 fatty acids is highly inflammatory. The omega-3 fatty acids, and this is where Thomas Padlock put a lot of his study and a lot of his research. And what he has found is the magic of overdosing, but you can't overdose, as he explains it, but going into high doses as much as you can get of the omega-3 fatty acids, because they give benefit throughout our body as well as our brain. They make us stronger, and they are highly anti-inflammatory, so they help reduce inflammation throughout the body. Where do we get omega-3 fatty acids? We get them mainly from flax and chia seeds, and mainly from flax or chia cold-pressed oils, fresh cold-pressed oils. Fresh meaning not rancid. If they go rancid, they're bad for you. Not any other kind of oil. So people on her protocol either, and she encourages 1/2 cup a day of flax or chia, or the combination of the two, or without the seeds, one can have 3 tablespoons of her flax or chia. It's easier to find flax cold pressed oil. I haven't been adding oil to anything since I went plant-based and almost SOS free, salt, oil, sugar free. But in this protocol, I've been adding a little bit of the flax oil because that is a boost in the omega-3 fatty acids. By not having processed food, which is loaded with omega-6 oils, not having oils, almost all oils, not olive oil, but almost all other oils are very, very high in omega-6 fatty acids. Meat is very high in omega-6 fatty acids. I'll call it digest it. We process those oils in our bodies using an enzyme. That enzyme is preferential to the omega-6s, which means that the omega-3s then don't get assimilated well. So you cut the 6s, which are inflammatory when we have too many, and we have way too many from those foods I just discussed. And then we put all of our attention into the 3s. So we get this balance of high omega-3s. That's where they're finding the magic. The hydration allows that magic to then be able to do what it's going to do on our body, and the toxins and the I'll call it runoff have a way of moving through our body with the help of the hydration, and the food is what brings in the nutrients. So that's the protocol. You need to hear more really to apply it, but that is what I have been doing now for 3 weeks, and I intend to do it for 6 weeks, that diligently. And the thing that saves most of us, when she did his protocol, they never thought of smoothies. She simply ate all that raw food during the day. Avocados are okay. And so she would just have guacamole and dip all of her vegetables in avocado in guacamole, or she would make huge, huge salads and just be chewing all day. And then she came up with the idea of making smoothies. Smoothieshred.com is one place you can go to get more information about their protocol and about the smoothies. But you can see the direction here. The power greens and cruciferous vegetables like chard and kale. Spinach isn't cruciferous, but it's a really healthy green, really high in omega-3s. 75% of a blender with those greens, 25% with frozen fruit, either banana or banana, mango, pineapple. And that's what I do. Pack down the greens in the carafe, especially of a Vitamix, because that can chew up everything. Put in the fruit, put in the flax seeds. I put in the lime. I put in some ginger, and fill the water up to the greens and blend it. And the smoothies are beautiful. They're delicious. It makes a lot, and I drink them all through the day. By drinking one of these smoothies, making one of these smoothies, you're getting in a pound to a pound and a half of health, nourishment, and a massive amount of omega-3s, because in there, let me go back, in there is also that half a cup of chia or flax or the mixture or the oil. Okay, so that's what I've been doing. At the conference, every morning I made a smoothie, and I carried it in a 32-ounce carafe with a straw that was insulated to keep it nice and cold. And I'll tell you how I managed to even get it cold in the first place. And then I had with me several containers that I brought empty, several Tupperware containers, to pour the rest of the smoothie in and put them in the refrigerator. I made sure there was going to be a refrigerator in our room, and I would go back to the room during breaks and refill my container throughout the day until it was gone, and it was usually gone by the middle of the afternoon. And that's exactly what I do at home, but it's just a little easier at home, but it was still easy enough to do there. So get in the smoothie, and then fresh vegetables and some fruit at lunch, and fresh vegetables and some fruit at dinner time, and the hydration, drinking the 96 ounces. Again, I'm up to 100. A lot of people, she every day drinks a gallon of water every day. And the water in the smoothie counts for part of that. That's about 40 to 42 ounces in that smoothie. Oh wait, let me back up. I could say to you, we're taking her hyper-nourishment on the road, and you would find it as easy as I did, but that's not necessarily so. You'd have to make some arrangements. I'll show you the food that they offered at the conference. For example, in the morning they had, and these weren't things I had because I was strictly raw and again, strictly on the protocol. So my smoothies, and then the things I could eat, like some fruit, some berries. But this was, and if I was on step down, if I was part of, or if I was doing what I usually do, whole food, plant-based, I would have loved this. And this was sweet potato hash and fresh berries and the little containers with bright color or the peach colored covers were spices to be able to put on, and behind that were different kinds of nuts and dry fruit. This was the salad bar. Looking at it one way, these were all sorts of greens, and looking at the other way, there was cucumber and sprouts and broccoli and steamed mushrooms. Mushrooms should be steamed, and it's the only exception to the cooked foods. If you like mushrooms, steam them or lightly braise them, very lightly, and then you can have them in green beans and just a plethora of vegetables. And that's what I ate, while others had other things, and this is more of the vegetables that they offered. And they also offered what you would find if you found anywhere else that gives you whole food, plant-based, SOS free. This is vegetables and beans and whole grain pastas with beautiful pasta sauces and more cooked vegetables and grains and tofu and fruit galore. We always had displays of fresh fruit and desserts that were salt, oil, sugar-free. Now, I had the fruit. I took some fruit, but I didn't touch any of the rest of these because they weren't on protocol. But look how pretty that is, and look how delicious they looked. This is what my meal looked like every meal but breakfast, because breakfast I would come and have a few berries, but I was drinking my smoothie. This is just a big salad with everything they had on those buffets. I would make this salad. This thing is probably, about 4 inches tall off the plate, and it's just layers and layers of fresh vegetables, and the fruit were some chopped apple and chopped pear and things like that. The Plantrition plate is a representation of what whole food, plant-based, good nutrition looks like. Greens and vegetables, quarter of the plate. Whole grains and starches, quarter. Fruits, a quarter. And beans and legumes, a quarter. And actually, the fruit is the smallest one. The rest are larger. Fruit is good, but it's not hyper-nourishing. It's nourishing, but not as hyper-nourishing as the greens, which are the healthiest foods you can eat. And the grains and legumes are our way to get a lot of fiber, but also a really good resource in terms of protein. Nuts and seeds are in there for healthy omega fats, as well as avocado. And then spices and herbs are on that Plantrition plate. And this is Dr. Goldner when she was finishing her talk and basically telling us we can make it happen, and we can make it happen with food, and it doesn't have to be expensive. And you know what? I am all in. That's it for that share. And so let me tell you what I did to make it work well enough. Bring this up. There you go. To make it work well enough. First of all, I arranged with the hotel that we had a refrigerator, but that wasn't a problem. They had one, and it was not just one filled with little bottles and very little room. It was an empty refrigerator. So I brought my greens in bags, the 6-ounce bags of spinach from Trader Joe's, the 24-ounce bag of super greens. I think they call it super greens at Costco. At home, what I do is I just have a 6-ounce bag of spinach, The whole thing goes in, and a 10-ounce bag of shredded organic, it's always organic, that's what I buy, of shredded kale, and I put half of the kale in and the full bag of spinach. And then I'm also adding some broccoli. I did that today for the first time because I wanted a full pound of these green and cruciferous vegetables. The kale's cruciferous, spinach is not, but still they're super green. And I added 4 ounces of broccoli. And I did that for the first time, and I thought, man, this is going to be a really awful smoothie. But actually, it was delicious. And then I put in, I mentioned it earlier, some lime, some ginger, a little knob of ginger. I even put in a little bit of turmeric. I have a mixture of turmeric with other things, including pepper. If you're going to use turmeric, you need to put some pepper in. It makes it more bioavailable. And then I brought with me containers. It would have been ideal to have all of my fruit frozen. That's what I do at home. And then when I put the water in, I get this nice cold smoothie. I couldn't do that because they didn't have a freezer in this little refrigerator. So I had little containers that I brought from home of cubed mango and cubed pineapple, and I brought super ripe bananas that I put in the refrigerator, the kind that are really black and speckly, because they're very sweet. And so the greens went in, a couple of bananas went in, some papaya, some pineapple, not papaya, mango, pineapple, the lime, and the ginger, and then filled it up with water, made the smoothie, poured poured into the 32 ounce, and then I had the containers, some smaller containers that I could fill with the rest of the smoothie to put back in the refrigerator and come and refill my smoothie during the breaks. This sounds like a lot, but you know what? It was no big deal. I have purpose. I am dedicated to this because I am dedicated to my health, and I'm dedicated to seeing what I can do to eliminate something that's been bothering me for a while for no other reason than that I know it's there, and there's a chance that it could flare up at some time. And if she could get past lupus, full-on lupus, I know I can get rid of antibodies that I wouldn't even know were there, except for these lab tests. And even my doctor said, yeah, it would be a good idea if you could see what you could do to get rid of these. And so we'll see. And then taking it on the road, if I were traveling, because my husband and I travel a lot, not with this strict of a protocol, but what I could have done if the hotel, if the buffet, for example, if this weren't a plant-based conference, I would have brought, well, actually I did because I wasn't sure what I would have. I brought sticks of jicama and bags of pre-washed sugar snap peas and radishes and what else? Oh, carrot sticks. And I had just a lot of vegetables with me. And I also brought pre-packaged containers of guacamole, because we can have on this protocol all the avocado we want, meaning all the guacamole we want. And that's one way to be able to eat cauliflower and broccoli and carrots and stay full, because the higher fat in that will help one stay full. Otherwise, there are very few calories in this other than the flax and chia and the avocado. So planning ahead, and if I was on the road, I would be able to stop at supermarkets and buy supermarket packaged salads. I brought my own salad dressing that came from this book so that I could dress my salads with my salad dressing, not the omega-6 high oils that are in all processed dressings. Let me think, what else? Fruits available wherever you go. My husband and I have flown all over the world, whole food, plant-based. This protocol is much, much more strict because it's whole food, plant-based, all raw, no oils. But it still would have been workable if we were traveling. It would have just taken a little bit more of this pre-thought, and I would have had to bring more food with me. But on every flight, I've gone with a bag of food, not liquid food, you can't do that, but a bag of food, knowing that I wasn't gonna be able to necessarily find whole food, plant-based, no or low oil, no sugar kind of foods. And it's been worth it. My husband's healthier than he's ever been. I'm healthier than I've ever been, except for this little this little bit of kindling I've got going on in my body. Which even the rheumatologist said, it doesn't seem to matter, Nan, so we can just let it go and see what happens, but I don't want to do that. And I'm done. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you see the possibilities, but I'm going to tell you something more. What I saw at the conference was doctor after doctor acknowledging the power of food to heal. I heard several doctors talk about the value of creating smoothies to get in massive amounts of nourishment down people who aren't going to eat a salad, aren't going to put that much weight of raw, healthy foods on a plate and sit and munch through them, but could easily drink them. The fruit helps people appreciate it more than if we just went without the fruit. And that's why the fruit is helpful, but she recommends no more than 25% of volume of fruit. But it couldn't have been brought home better to me at this conference than seeing doctor after doctor acknowledge that, but also doctor after doctor talk about how they follow protocols quite often that require medications, quite often that don't touch the symptoms, and that more and more are getting their medical institutions to be willing to accept lifestyle as medicine and bill insurances for it, but also are more and more prescribing to people rather gently the food protocols. Well, Dr. Goldner, because she doesn't deal with insurance, she is a what they call concierge kind of a doctor, doesn't have to deal with any of that. She can hit this head on with a protocol that is powerful, that has gotten remarkable results, and that most physicians in most practices couldn't expect people to not only follow, because there wouldn't be a way to keep them continually informed the way she does every day with videos and training opportunities online, but that they wouldn't be able to properly follow up on, and therefore it would be more difficult for them to prescribe, I'll say, such a, we'll call it radical change from everyday life. And yet she's seeing, again, results that very few ever see in their medical practices. That's all I have to say. I hope this was helpful. I appreciate your being here. Consider aging powerfully and give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and I hope to see you again. And again, thank you for joining me. Have a great day. I know I'm going to. Bye-bye.